Thanks for tuning in to My Valley, His Victory, hosted by me, Mackenzie Smith, where I interview Christians who love the outdoors and have walked through valleys in their lives. In a world of highlight reels and surface-level relationships, we all have faced hardships. I believe our experiences can be encouraging to others if we have the courage to be vulnerable. 2 Corinthians 1 says, "The Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." My goal is to inspire you to come to the Creator through His creation and connect you with Christians who have been through similar experiences. I pray that this podcast encourages you if you are in a valley and pushes you to share how God has turned your past valley into His victory. On today's episode of My Valley, His Victory, we have Renee Parks. She's been married for 25 years and has 3 kids. She quit her corporate job 3 years ago, and she works from home as a full-time health coach, which has allowed her to go on more adventures with her family. Thanks so much for being with us today, Renee.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yes, absolutely. I know I gave the listeners your bio, but why don't you go ahead and just tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a mom of 3, a stepmom to 1. So I've had 2 of my own kiddos, but they are actually all officially adults now, which is crazy. Been married for, it'll be 26 years this summer. And my husband was a full-time teacher for 24 years and started our own software company a few years ago. And he works from home full-time now. So we're both here. I do health coaching full-time, and our remote jobs has allowed us to start traveling much more than we used to. So, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys are based in like the greater Nashville area, right?
We are.
Awesome. And you said 26 years of marriage.
Yeah. That is all God right there.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Thank
That
you.
is a huge feat and a huge milestone that is, more rare these days than not. And so just congratulations to you too. And for that, that's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So I know that you said that you are a full-time health coach. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I've struggled with some health stuff for many years. And I just got to the point where I was working full-time outside the home, and I felt the worst I had ever felt. I was like 30 something at the time, 37 maybe. And I always joked that I felt like I was 70. And I'm like, that is not right. And I had a friend that was doing health and fitness from home. And I just reached out to her and I was like, I've got to do something. And who knew? I always joked that exercise was not my thing in any way. And I started working out and decided that I wanted to pay that forward. And here I am, like 8 years later, still on this health journey, still helping women. I love empowering them, and I love that I can teach them and encourage them to not look at the physical side of things. And really it's about, fitness is about being our best for the quality of life that we want long term. And for me, I want to keep doing that and staying strong because we love hiking and being outside. And I definitely have not been able lately to get out there as much as I have been, but I think it's super important, like stay fit and healthy and work on that at home so that we can go on all of these amazing adventures that, you need some stamina for.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that is so important. And I think that fitness definitely has taken this turn. Specifically, I feel like in the past couple of years, I know, a couple of my friends that you work with that also do the same thing. And it really is more about the way that you feel and the way that, or in the things that you are able to do, your body is able to do, rather than this, I just have to be chiseled and I have to be thin and I have to be toned. And it's like, yeah, that's really cool, but that's not going to keep you motivated for long term.
It's not, because that was my goal. Initially, when I reached out to my friend, I was like, I want your abs. And that is like the last thing I care about today,
Yeah.
Staying strong. And as I age, because I am not super young anymore. I'll be 46 this year. And I see so many people that are just not well and they can't do daily activities. And I don't want to be like that. I want to do everything in my power to be able to be mobile and adventurous and live life, to my best ability.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important. And that will motivate you beyond anything I'm going to say, see in the mirror. You're going to see some improvements, obviously, in the mirror if you do those things. But, it's not about how you look. It's about how you feel.
Yes.
And if you were saying, at 30 that you feel like you're 70, like, I can't imagine if you didn't change anything, how you would be feeling, now.
Exactly.
So I know that you said that you like to do some hiking and you and your husband like to do a bunch of travel. Tell us kind of a little bit more about that and what your outdoor recreation looks like.
Well, it used to mean that we would just go to the beach and park ourselves in the sand and do nothing for a week. And that actually got old really quick. And as my kids have grown, we'll talk about my story and stuff later, but as things have changed over the years, we have been able to do much more when it comes to travel. And my husband is such a mountains guy, and I have family that live in Colorado. And so we've been to the mountains many times. And my husband always jokes, he's like, we're going to have a mountain house one day. And I'm like, no, we're going to have a beach house. Well, now it's swapped, and I shouldn't say swapped, but I am 100% on board, like mountains all the way. We love it. We love being outside. I was not a fan of camping years ago, probably in the last 5 years, when we took a trip out west and we camped in the Grand Canyon. We camped along Highway 1 near Big Sur, and we camped in Sequoia National Forest. And after that trip, I was like, I'm all in for this camping thing. Like, it was phenomenal. So it took some prodding from my family. It was either join them in camping or I would just be left behind. Like, they would go and camp. So that wasn't going to happen. So I joined in, and it has been something that has just grown on me. It has taken time to grow.
Yeah. Do you have any like special tips or tricks or hacks or things that like changed what you thought camping was to now something that you enjoy? Like, what were some of the things where you were like, I can't get past this when it comes to camping? For some people, it's like sleeping on the ground or whatever, like what things did you, find or what works for you that's kind of changed that?
The majority of it is my mindset. My mindset had to change towards it, but I don't mind sleeping on a mattress on the ground or sleeping in a tent, or we do have a truck tent, so we're not sleeping on the ground anymore. But I'm still not a fan of camping in 90-degree weather. But my biggest hang up was probably like not showering on a regular basis. But there are so many things available today that it's like you don't have to feel gross just because you're not showering for a couple days or 3 days or whatever. So, but I really think like my mindset just had to change around it, and to accept that that's okay. Like, I don't have to have a shower every day. Sleeping in the tent, that kind of thing never really bothered me. I love food. I love to eat, and I like having things like prepped and easy for camping. If it takes a bunch of work, that's probably like my least favorite thing. So we just prep and plan. Like, we go through all of our gear, all of our cooking stuff every time we're getting ready to leave, and we just make sure that we're good to go and everything's ready.
Yeah. Having a good home cooked meal while you're camping is amazing. Yes. Don't get me wrong. There's a time and a place for dehydrated meals, but I would say that, me and my husband, whenever we go camping, his favorite thing to do is to cook like crazy good meals out in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, I think so many people think you have to give up so many things to go camping. Like, I can't eat good food and I can't do this and whatever. And it's like, no, you can still do some of those things. And for you, the showering thing, like, we have a shower attached to the truck. Like, there's ones that can fit in, probably a foot by a foot box, and you can have a portable shower on the go nowadays. Like, we live in a time where if there's something holding you back from camping, you can probably find a hack around it.
There really is no like true excuse to like, oh, I can't shower. Oh, I can't do this. Actually, there are options for everything out there.
Yeah. And don't ever discount the power of some baby wipes and a good little wipe down.
I've got like packages of those.
I feel like I find a half-used one in the truck every time we go. They're just hidden everywhere.
Yes. No, those are a must. Like, I don't know how many times I've even like gone to a camp bathroom, or, you know, when you're in like a national park and it's just the hole in the ground and there is no toilet paper. Like,
yep.
I can't do that. I got to have something. So that kind of thing comes with me now on a regular basis, but everything, it's doable. And I really feel like disconnecting and getting in nature is even more important. I feel like in today's world where we have electronics and busyness and stuff in our face all the time, that disconnecting and getting out in nature it's just such a release, but also like re-energizes me for life.
Yeah. Preach, girl. Same.
Yes.
So out of kind of all the travels that you guys have done and the places that you've seen, do you have a favorite place? I know that's always a really hard question, but do you have a place that just kind of really lit your soul on fire and you just want to keep going back to?
I have two. There's two. I want to go back to both places, Yellowstone and the Grand Canyon. We just did Yellowstone last summer, and that was like a last minute trip that we planned. We originally had planned to go somewhere else. And then my son was like, I really want to go to Yellowstone and the Tetons. And he wanted to go see Devil's Tower in South Dakota. And we were like, okay, we're going to make this a road trip. But we did Yellowstone, and I feel like the couple weeks that we went between Yellowstone and the Tetons was like not even enough time. And then the Grand Canyon, like, we definitely didn't spend enough time there. And I have so many friends that have done like the rim to rim hiking. I don't know if I could mentally get there to do that, but that kind of thing, I'm like, dude, I think I would want to take that challenge, you know?
Yeah.
But they're both like, I look at both of those places and they're both very different, but I can't, like, I remember standing at the overlook at the Grand Canyon, and we were on the South Rim, and like my husband and I both looking at each other being like, how can anyone not believe that there's a God? Because look at this, like, it is just unbelievable. Like, you can take pictures all day long, but seeing it with your own eyes it's just unbelievable.
Yeah. I have just launched a podcast that was a guy talked all about the Grand Canyon and how wonderful of a place it is. Actually, I have two that have come out in the past, I think, month with the Grand Canyon. And so I'm like, man, I really need to go because y'all are hyping it up and I have not been yet. So
it's amazing. And even my kids, like, I'll never forget taking my kids there and seeing their faces, and it's just, there is no good way to describe it. There really isn't. Like, seeing it for yourself is a must.
Yeah. It's on my bucket list. I'll make it one day. So you kind of just led into this next question with saying that you don't understand how people can't see God in the outdoors, but can you kind of talk to us a little bit more about how the outdoors plays a role specifically in your relationship with Christ?
I think for me, and I know like these next couple of questions, they kind of all go together. But for me, like, yes, seeing something like the Grand Canyon and how expansive it is, or seeing Yellowstone and like going up to Yellowstone Lake. I didn't even know that existed, but seeing those places, like, all I see is God's handiwork in that. And there is such, like, my best way to describe it is there is such a peace that I get in the outdoors in general, but truly seeing, we love national parks, and I definitely have not seen enough national parks. But the ones that we have seen, every time I'm like, it's so unbelievable to me. But the peace that I just feel, like driving through a national park, camping at a campsite in the national park, and just soaking up all of the sounds of nature. Like when we were in Sequoia and we camped between Sequoia and Kings Canyon is where we camped. And I remember being frustrated because our campsite was next to these people that seemed to be having the largest party of anybody had ever seen at a campsite. And they were so loud, and they had like 1 million kids. And I was like, we are never going to be able to sleep tonight. It's going to be so annoying. And like, it was like God just took care of it. Our campsite was near what I can only describe as a roaring river. And crazy thing is, when we went to bed that night, like literally you could hear nothing but the water. And those types of things, to me, I'm like, how, in nature, it's just unbelievable to me. But again, like that was such peace that I received, even though I wanted to complain about the people that were down the way from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's unreal.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more.
I just feel like every time I'm in the outdoors and we do a hike, we go, we visit a national park, whatever, I feel like I have like a thankfulness that just floods me. That is, I don't know how to describe it, but literally I feel like just this such gratitude, that I'm able to take this in. And when I tell my story, you'll understand. But, 10, 15 years ago, if you had told me that we would take these trips that are not cheap, I would have been like, there's no way that we're going to be able to do that. And so I feel like every one that we go on, I'm just like more grateful for what I've experienced.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So I know that you have the opportunity to go and travel to some really cool places, but I know you also live in and around Nashville, Tennessee. So can you talk to us about some practical ways to connect with God through the outdoors without being in these super grand national parks out west?
Like, one of my favorite spots is literally 15 minutes down the road. And I feel like it's really important to find whatever it looks like for that person, because I am not far from the city, but I do live in a small little town, and, I can drive 10, 15 minutes and be completely in nature, and it's amazing. But I think finding a quiet, peaceful spot, whatever that looks like for you, is like, the best way to connect with him. And it doesn't even mean that you have to be in nature to connect and, have that quiet time. There are many days where I am sitting here in my bedroom, in my chair, and I'm doing my devotional, and just having that quiet time here at home is just as amazing.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. It's like, yes, we can get outside when we can, but there's also ways to connect with them right here in our own home.
Yeah.
And, even if that's just looking out the window at a tree or the grass or, a bird,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
There's still little ways of connecting through his creation that's maybe not the outdoors. So
yeah, I agree.
Definitely. All right. Well, switching gears a little bit into the title of this podcast, My Valley, His Victory, would love for you to share a season of wilderness that you experienced and what God taught you or prepared you for in that season.
So, yeah, what I've been alluding to is, so it's been, probably 15 to 17 years that we were at our lowest, I would say, when it came to our finances. We made ridiculous decisions. We were young. I got married at 19. We moved to Tennessee like the day after our honeymoon. Fun fact, if you charge a credit card, you got to pay the bill. But we really just, we were living paycheck to paycheck. We then, of course, got our first credit cards. We were like mid 20s when we got our first credit card, and just not smart and didn't pay the bills, and the bills added up. And I just know year after year, it just got worse, until we rented and we moved to new houses every 1 to 2 years. And we were renting from our amazing Sunday school teachers at the time, but their son was moving home and he was going to move into the place we were living in. And our youngest was not quite a year, maybe. And they were like, we're going to need you guys to move out, which was like, we understood. And so we looked for a place. We had a really hard time finding a place. We found this little house that was not what I wanted. And it was probably like 900 square feet, really. It was very small, which was not a huge deal, but it was just not up to par. I remember being able to see through the wood floors to the dirt basement and being so angry at God that he put us in that house. I was so ungrateful that I even had a home to live in. And I just remember being so angry. And I had been a Christian for years at that point, but I had never felt so far away from him. And I just remember my husband, who has always been like the rock of our family, and he works harder than anyone I know. But I remember him being like, I think we need to be on our knees praying every night. And I'm like, okay, like that's really going to work, And we literally did. When we moved into that house, I said, I'm not living here more than 18 months, which, mind you, we were broke. We had no money. And I'm like, it's not like we could afford to go buy a house. But he was like, I think we need to be on our knees praying. And I don't know how long we lived there before we started doing that. Probably not 6 months. Like I feel like we were pretty desperate and like started praying pretty quickly. And I remember my husband being like, we're going to do the Dave Ramsey thing. Like we had done Dave Ramsey. We knew the concept. He was like, we're doing cash in envelopes. And if that cash is gone, it's gone till the next payday. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, like how, like we literally are not going to be able to do this. But we did the snowball our debt thing. And we kept praying every night on our knees. Most of those prayers ended in tears, but we did the envelopes with the money, and we prayed every night, and we just started snowballing our debt. We picked the smallest bill that we had, and we paid on that until we paid it off. And then we started the next one, and we lived in that house for 3 years. And I don't know when, but at some point of, being on our knees and praying every night, at some point, I was not angry anymore. I don't know if I was thankful, but I was at peace about our situation. And I knew that, it would have been really easy to file bankruptcy and just, be free of that debt. But we knew that we put ourselves in that spot, and it was our job to get out of that. And anyway, so we literally were there for about 3 years, and we're paying off debt all through that time. And then it was March of 2011. And mind you, at this time, I was at peace with our situation. But March of 2011, our septic backed up in this rental, and we could not get a hold of the landlord. She had actually had like some health stuff, and she was in like a rehabilitation facility. And we paid for pumping the septic ourselves on a weekend. So, on a weekend, it's even more expensive. But we had the money. Like, we think back to this now. Like, at the time, we didn't really think about it, but we had the money to pay to get the septic pumped, which would not have been the case 3 years prior. And we paid to get the septic pumped. And that was the week before spring break for my husband and my kids. And my husband said, "We are moving out at spring break. We are moving out." And I'm like, and there had been many other issues with that place, but that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. And my husband was like, "We're moving out." And I'm like, we don't even have a place to go. Like, we're not moving out in a week. We have no boxes packed. That's not even logical. But we had continued praying for all these years for God to provide and to, provide a home for us. We didn't know what that would look like or when. And so my husband started looking for houses. And on Monday, he found a house near the area that we really wanted to live in. The owner happened to be a previous landlord of ours. And we were like, we want to do a lease purchase on this. We need like 1 more year of cleaning up our credit, paying off our debt. And he was willing to do a lease purchase. And we were like, this is phenomenal. He was like, "This place is yours. I have a couple coming tomorrow. They're already on their way from like Alabama or Arkansas." And he said, "But it's yours." And we were like, okay, phenomenal, like so exciting. And it was kind of in the country. We had a creek. The kids would have loved it. And then on Tuesday, that couple came and they gave him $3,000 earnest money to sell the property to them. So he called us and was like, "I'm sorry, I'm going with this other couple. They gave me $3,000. We were like, I was so upset. And I'm like, we were so close, And then on Wednesday, my husband was like, "I'm going to look at these townhouses right in the town that we live in, not far from the kids' school." And he said, "I'm going to go look at those." And I'm like, I am not living there. Like, we had never had neighbors before. We always lived like in the country, that type of thing. This is a townhouse in town. And a couple blocks away is a train that you can hear. And I'm like, no way. But he came and saw the place that was for sale on Wednesday. And then Wednesday night, I came and saw it. And we both were like, this is it. And Thursday, we signed a lease purchase. And Friday, we moved in without a box packed. We were not prepared. And Friday was the start. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional. But Friday was the start of spring break. And I was the one that was like, there is no way we're moving at spring break. And we literally got this house it was unbelievable. And I can't not tell that story to this day because, for 3 years, I was upset, angry, mad at God about where he had us in life, which was our own doing. But I was so angry. And then to see how swiftly he can move in your life when you are faithful and just trust in him. And here we are 13 years later, and we actually still live in this same house and love it and love our neighborhood and love our town. And we're like every day so thankful that we get to wake up here and live here. And it's crazy because I know lots of people, they buy a home and then they're like, okay, this is a starter home. And then we're going to get something bigger or something better or whatever. And God has just kept a peace in my heart since we moved in this home, and just such a thankfulness that I literally have not had a desire to ever move. I do want to get a vacation home in the mountains, but that would be in addition to this. But I just feel like, we were faithful and we were on our knees every single night. And like, God never left us. He was with us that whole time. Maybe I couldn't see it for a period of time because I let my own anger and maybe the devil got to sneak in a little bit. But he moved, and he moved so swiftly. And like, I still think back to March of 2011 to this day. And I have like such amazing fond memories, and like, I still feel the excitement that we felt. But we were able to do a lease purchase, and the owner at the time, it was a brand new build. So the builder was the owner, and he was willing to let us do a lease purchase. We actually knew some of his family members, so he like checked on us with them to know if we were like crazy, which I am, but no. But anyway, he was like wanting to make sure he was making the right decision, and he did. He gave us, it was almost exactly 18 months, and we were able to rehab our credit, pay off our bills. When we bought this place, we didn't even have a car payment at the time when we bought this place. And I like, literally, it was all God. There is no other explanation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that and for just walking us through that experience. I think you found yourself in a place that so many people do. And so I think that even if it's not on the financial front, I think that this is going to impact somebody. And kind of the storyline that I'm taking out of this is you made some poor decisions, and you were angry at God for you were angry at God for something that he really didn't have any control over. No. You kind of put yourself in that situation. But I think you did something that so many people, this is where they get stuck, is you owned it. Yeah. You humbled yourself in front of the Lord. You got down on your knees every day and prayed. And you were disciplined to fix it. Yeah. And I think that that's where so many people get stuck, is they're just angry at God about their situation, sometimes a situation that they put themselves in, but they don't take the steps to humble themselves and to follow through with the disciplines that need to happen. And so just want to say kudos to you for doing that, because I know that that was a hard place. And I'm sure those first couple months of praying were
not pretty.
Not going to say fake, but you know what I mean? Like, they were like, God, can you please just do something? Like, you say you're here. They weren't those.
Right.
I'm sure they evolved over time, right? And they became a lot more sincere and a lot more. Right. Your heart probably started to change. Right. But your heart wouldn't have changed unless you would have done that process. And so sometimes I think we wait for our heart to be in the right spot to start something. And it's like, no, you need to start the thing. And your heart is going to change with it.
100%.
But you have to stay disciplined to the discipline, right? To get there. And so I just think that that's like a huge thing that I'm taking out of this story. And I think that goes along with anything. Like, I think that God, in a lot of ways, he calls us to some really big things. But I think for the most part, one of the things that he wants most is for us to just be disciplined. Are we stewarding our finances right? Are we stewarding our body right? Are we taking care of others the way that we need to be, and not just going off of our feelings and going off of, other things, because our feelings are fleeting and they're always going to lead us astray. But if we can just stay disciplined to the things that we know we need to do, I think that that can get us so far.
And I think part of it too, and I have learned this over time, and like when I started my health coaching business, so many times we just make a decision for ourselves and don't pray about it. And I was never big on praying. And I'll be honest, when life is really good, I am way less likely to be on my knees praying. And my husband and I recently talked about this again. I'm like, dude, we literally should be on our knees and thanking God for everything that he has provided for us because we are undeserving. But so many times we just jump into something. And so, like with health coaching, I remember being like, I'm going to be a health coach. Yes, I'll do that. And then, like a month after I jumped into it, I was like, whoa, I did not even pray about this. I just decided I was going to do this. And so I really did pray about it and, prayed that my health coaching business would help lead others to know God. And through that, I've been able to lead like devotionals, Bible studies with my fitness groups. And many of my clients, have been like, oh, well, I've never really prayed, or I've never done a Bible study, or I don't go to church, or those types of things. And I'm like, you can start small and baby step it, and you don't have to make all of these crazy decisions and changes and find a church immediately, or whatever it is to just start your walk with God. Like, pray about it and just take that first step. And I feel like he's blessed my coaching business in ways that I'm not talking financially, but I mean in ways that I never would have seen or even expected when I first was like, oh, I'll be a health coach. That'll be fun. I'll make some extra income.
Yeah.
But it's become way more than that. And so I think if we just take a step back and pray over these big things in our lives, these big decisions, we can save ourselves a lot of heartache in the long run, because I look back to all the decisions that we made that slowly dug us our hole. And then we were at, our breaking point, our lowest point. And I mean, I could have probably talked for 20 more minutes on all of the things that were so awful that were happening in our lives at that time when it came to our finances. But I just know, like, being on my knees in prayer, like he is with you. When you think he is not there, he is there, and he is listening at all times.
Yeah. And I think even when we do make those decisions and we don't pray and consult God first, and we make decisions and we find ourselves in a place where we haven't consulted God, all it takes is for us to turn and to ask and to pray and just be like, God, if this is not where you want me, or if you want me to be doing something different, let me know. But you have to be willing to even ask that question, even if you turn down the wrong road, because we're all going to turn down the wrong road at some point.
Yes.
We're all going to make wrong decisions. But do you just sit there and say, well, this is my life, this is the path I've chosen, so I got to deal with it, or, I got to muster myself up by my own bootstraps and fix this problem that I put myself in. Like,
right.
If you turn to God and ask him for help, he's not going to abandon you. He wants to do it with you. He's
exactly
probably a little sad you made that choice deep down in his heart, but he's still going to be the dad that's going to pick you up, even though he just told you not to touch the oven and you did it.
Right.
He's still gonna, dress your wounds. He's still gonna, love you. He's still gonna hold you. He's still gonna care for you, and he's still gonna invest in you in the future.
Right. And I look back at all of it now, and everything since then, there have been other moments that God has pushed us out of our comfort zone, or things that I never would have chosen. And like, he is there and he is using it for your story. And I have heard so many people say, or I've seen it on social media, where people are like, I have made too many mistakes, or the mistakes I've made are so much worse than yours, so there's no way that God would ever forgive me. And that is like the biggest lie anybody could tell themselves, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if, we had our financial problems and not leaning into him to guide us. But then, the person that is having an affair on his wife, it doesn't matter the sin. It is all the same in God's eyes. And all he wants us to do is to come to him and repent and ask for his help.
Yep.
Literally ask for his help. And you might not get the help in the way that you're expecting it, but when he provides, when he makes his move, it's better. It is better than you could ever expect, whatever it is.
So true. I think what you said there is so important is God's going to help. It just may not look like what you think it's going to look like. And so you have to have the mindset to be open to that. Because I think so many times we miss God because we're like, God, if you're going to move, can you move like this? And he's like,
right.
No, I'm going to actually move like this, you know?
Yeah.
And so
we can't put him in a box. Box.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So looking back on your journey, and for somebody who maybe is going through a similar season, who is in the depths of debt and is in financial crisis and who, you know, is just in the same place that you were, what words of encouragement or advice would you give to them?
I would, number one, be on your knees in prayer. Number one, something that we didn't do. And like, we have openly spoken about, you know, our financial struggles and stuff over the years. Like, we've openly spoken about it to our Sunday school family, our church family, our Sunday school teacher, our friend. Like, it was so hard and scary the first time I ever shared this information with anyone. But my biggest piece of advice would be to lean into your safe community, whether that is a Sunday school family or a church family or your best friend or what. Like, we lived like this fake life where nobody knew like the hell that we were going through. And it's because we were so ashamed and embarrassed. And I feel like so many people would say that about whatever struggle they have had in their life. They had shame, they had embarrassment, and they didn't want anyone to know. And the most freeing thing is being open and sharing that with a safe, you know, I say safe community, your friends, family, whatever. Sometimes it's easier to share it with someone that is not family. I just personally speaking of that, sometimes you just need like that unbiased party to talk about it with. That would be like, that's my biggest regret, that we just held it inside and didn't tell anyone what we were going through. And I think that was just a huge mistake. I feel like we could have had so much support, you know, emotionally and biblically from our friends.
Yeah. I think that that's huge. And I think that we have definitely talked about that a lot on this podcast, that confession and releasing that, you know, shame is really something that once you let it out into the light, like it loses its grip. And so I think we always think like, oh, it's shame and it's going to be so hard to tell someone what we're going through. But it's like you're saying, there's so much freedom in that. And I know multiple people have talked about that on this podcast. I know that's part of my story as well. And so,
yeah. Well, the devil wants us to feel that shame because if we tell our story, like our testimony, I call it a story, a testimony, whatever. When we tell that, what it's going to do is open up the doors for somebody else to come to know Christ through your testimony. And the devil doesn't want that. So if you feel shame and embarrassment and stay quiet, then the devil's winning, in my opinion.
Yep. Exactly. You crushed that one. That's good. Any other things you want to add or share in regards to your story?
I just think that people should know, like, no matter how hard it is, whatever season you're in, that it feels hopeless or, you know, lonely, because that is like, even though my husband and I were together in this, it still felt so lonely. But no matter what, like, you might feel alone, but literally God is with you all the time through all of it. He is by your side even when you feel alone.
Yeah, that's so good and so true. And I think, going through these seasons of this and feeling alone and then looking back and seeing God through it is really important, because then the next time we feel alone, we know that God was with us last time and he's going to be with us again. And so if you can reflect and try to see those times in your life, I think that it's definitely going to help you as you hit hard seasons again in the future, because chances are there will be another one of some sort.
There will be. There will be challenges. There will be, it really does. Once you've been through a really hard season, or at least for me, going through that, anytime we've come to bumps in the road after that, it has only grown my faith and my prayer life and, being in his word, like, especially in the really hard times, really focusing on being in the word has made just a ton of difference, and not as dark as it was for us back then. I don't feel like anything we have dealt with since then has felt as dark, because we know, like, leaning on prayer, he is going to come through for us. It might be today, it might be tomorrow, it might be a year from now, but like the hope that we have because of his faithfulness, all those years ago, like, it's just grown our faith in it.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, thank you so much, Renee, for sharing your story and for being on this podcast and just walking us through this season of financial difficulty and just God's faithfulness and the way in which he's moved through your life. I know that this story is going to be impactful to somebody listening, and just want to say thank you so much. And for those listening who maybe want to follow along with you or connect with you, how can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram at Renee Parks Unplugged. I'm also on TikTok, but definitely not consistent on that platform. Mostly I am on Instagram.
Yeah. So if you guys want to see their awesome travels or learn a little bit more about the health coaching that Renee does, definitely go check her out and connect with her there. And like I said, I just want to say thank you so much again, Renee, for being here and sharing your story.
Thank you for having me, Kenzie.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of My Valley, His Victory. If you or someone you know are interested in being on this podcast, please email myvalleyhisvictory@gmail.com.